Okay, well, just to say to begin with, the first part of my talk will be extremely philosophical, global, psychological, and then quickly I will go into the more practical. So please be patient with the first part. It's an immense honor and a privilege for me to be here in this amazingly kind of significant historical place where revolution changed politics and society. And for me, the new revolution is not so much political, it's not even educational, even though I'm an educationalist. It's more a revolution of the way we see the world. This is an unusual concept that I'm going to bring, but I think it's absolutely primary to changing education. First of all, we have to see the right side of education. And there's a little bit of a joke in there, the right side, because I'm going to be talking about the right side of the brain to make meaning in learning. So I want to begin with a very clear definition of the way we can perceive the world as my generation and the younger generation also, where a new revolution takes place. Albert Einstein said, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, while the rational mind is a faithful servant. Now, there are a million ways to see the world, but fundamentally, there are only two, in a way. And the brain research of the right and left hemisphere is quite controversial. It changes, it goes backwards and forwards. But new research is showing that the brain, it works very comprehensively between both hemispheres. But still, nevertheless, there is an accent from the right side of the brain which makes connections between many, many different kinds of information. And it turns them into knowledge, and it turns them then into wisdom. The rational mind, the left hemisphere, is very different. It is mechanistic, it's logistical, it's linear, and this describes the last 200 years of education. This is an advertising campaign by Mercedes-Benz and a poster from their advertising campaign, and they very proudly present they portray a picture of how they balance their excellence in style, aesthetic, beauty, design, with the left brain, technicality, science, data, mechanics. So I'm going to just read this very quickly. The left brain, this is what the poster said, the previous poster. I am the left brain, I am a scientist, a mathematician, I love the familiar, I categorize, I am accurate, linear, analytical, strategic, I am practical, always in control, a master of words and language, realistic, I calculate equations and I play with numbers, I am order, I am logic, I know exactly who I am. Left brain. The last 200 years of education. The right brain says, I am the right brain. I am creativity, a free spirit. I am passion, yearning, sensuality. I am the sound of roaring laughter. I am taste. The feeling of sand beneath my feet. I am movement, vivid color. I am the urge to create. I am boundless imagination, art, poetry. I sense, I feel, I am everything I wanted to be. Now, I've just added to this a little bit, and I've put it more into educational terms. So, education from the left brain, again, since the Industrial Revolution, has been point-centered thinking, as opposed to holistic thinking. We have exams as a priority instead of experiences. We have linear thinking instead of lateral thinking. We have fragmented information instead of integrated knowledge. We have data instead of wisdom. We have disintegration happening everywhere rather than integration. We have analysis instead of synthesis, division and connectedness. Now, I am not saying the left hemisphere is a demon, because this is for me, this is my very first PowerPoint presentation in my life. It's a very left hemisphere activity. So it's terrified me to put this together. But I have to say that one thing I say is that, talking about Lego bricks, by the way, I've always said that we have to change our education system from a small grey cube and transform it into a large, transparent, semi-permeable sphere. Schools without walls, perhaps, is a possibility. I must mention this book. This is a relatively recent book by Professor Ian McGilchrist. This is, for me, a pivotal book in understanding where education has come from and where it's going. The master and his emissary, the master being the right brain, the emissary being the servant, and how over the last 200 years things have reversed. The left hemisphere has become the master. This professor was an Oxford student of literature. He became a neuroscientist. And he has just made a film called The Divided Brain. It's a new film that I fully recommend that you see as educators, to see the whole societal global shift that needs to take place from mechanistic thinking. And at this point I will say that science and technology is not necessarily the holy grail for children. You know, it's an important thing to keep up with. But as I'll describe in a minute, the arts are yeast for society. The arts can produce ethics, morality, innovation, creativity. The arts are not a luxury. They're not something on the sideline. So I'm going to show you a little bit of work that I do with the students at the school in Scotland. I'm a head teacher, but I also teach knife making, canoe building, well, basically a lot of subjects, but mainly I'm an artist and a craftsperson. And so this is why I'm flying the flag a little bit for the arts in education, which is so terribly missing. We take a car spring because it's high carbon steel, it's very tough metal. We take a Scottish whiskey barrel. In Scotland, these whiskey barrels are dismantled when they are old and used, and outside all the cottages there are piles of whiskey-smelling wood for firewood. So we take some of this, and we took our school vaulting horse, which was not being used, it was falling apart, and we took the leather off it. So here we have the leather, which is the animal kingdom. We make connections between many different elements. The cow from the animal kingdom, the oak from the plant kingdom, the metal from the mineral kingdom, and the human kingdom puts them together. We take the forge, and there are about 12 students working on making a knife. Half of them will go into a classroom somewhere and they have to do a personal presentation, which I'll show you in a minute, which is written, which is research-based, left hemisphere, and it's illustrated beautifully, and it's associated knowledge about the knife. Because we can't get 12 people around the blacksmith shop. So I'm teaching this. The girls and the boys make a knife each. It's lots of collaboration, cooperation, risk, courage. When a parent saw this, she said, "It's very irresponsible of you to be making knives with teenagers. They could stab each other." I said, young people are stabbing each other because they're not occupied in making craft items. So the barrel, whiskey barrel, the vaulting horse, and the car spring is recycled, and this is one that a young boy made, and he had shot the deer himself for meat, not for sport, and he made the handle from the deer that he shot. This was obviously a car spring, and the guard was a copper plumbing pipe. So, this is where integration comes in. Integrated knowledge, not separate, fragmented, left hemisphere knowledge. These are the 12 projects, and I say, is anybody interested in, say, number 2, physics? Any of you are physicians, so how springs work, types of springs. You do a one week research on this, write it, illustrate it, present it to your peers. Anybody interested in charcoal making? The charcoal which heats up the forge. This is chemistry and physics. Anybody interested in history? Would you like to take this on? It's a timeline. The oldest oak tree is 1,050 years old. What did that oak tree see in its lifetime? Give us a presentation of what happened in 1,050 years through history, the main events. If you're interested in botany, you could look at the ecosystem of the oak tree. It actually has 265 species living within an oak tree. So there's a lot of research there. the history of barrel making. Anybody interested in crafts? Somebody interested in chemistry might present the distillation of whiskey. A study of the cow. The cow has 4 stomachs. It's a very interesting animal. Leather tanning and preservation. School's vaulting horse. Find out where it was made. You know, it was full of horsehair. It was a very interesting object to research. And one student who took all the photographs was journaled the knife-making project. And, of course, the very important one, knife crime in Britain. It's a big problem. And so the students present these to each other. And then these are just a few other things that we make. The school is not just crafts or art. We do have science subjects, we have languages, mathematics lessons, but in there's also lots of maths to make these canoes. We made 7 of them. We made these bread ovens. Again, maths, physics, science, poetry, the poetry about fire. It all makes learning meaningful, but it isn't really about the making of the knife or the information around the biography of the knife. It's about training the neural pathways to make lateral connections with knowledge and making a whole picture. We make beehives. Again, the beehive, it's lots of measurement, lots of maths, geometry, botany of flowers. There's a lot of information, and I have to stress again, it's not information for the sake of information. It's about widening the scope of a young person's connections with different kinds of information. I'm coming to the end now. I've only shown you a little bit of philosophy and a little bit of the school. But here in Gdańsk, I've been here about 7 times in the last 2 years, we began a movement called the Forum for the International Renewal of Education, called FIRE. And we want to spread this fire. And it has some really, on the website, it has some 10 philosophical points, the new essentials of education. It has 10 pedagogical points, the new pedagogy for the 21st century. And then it has 10 really clear practical points of classroom-based, school-based, very pragmatic guidelines of how to change education into a more holistic, artistic, I have to say. Education is not a science, it is an art. And finally, Aristotle's quote, education is not the filling of a vessel, but the lighting of a fire. And that's the, if you want to copy it down, that's the website. It's all one line. I have 38 seconds left. If we teach children the love of nature, eventually that will be translated for climate awareness. If we teach values and ethics to children as a part of their curriculum, we might have a healthier financial system that's not so left brain, fragmented and closed. If we teach art and creativity, the arts, we may have more innovation in science and technology. but the fluidity of the right brain must be nurtured through the arts. If we have discussion and cooperation, collaboration, forums with the children, then we may have a more emotionally intelligent society. Time is up. And just to show that we do have bookwork rather than just hammering steel, in the chill-out area where the coffee is, I photocopied some of their books, their written work, and that they will be displayed somewhere near the coffee area, where they've done their handwriting and illustration of topic-based education. I think that's perfect timing, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.